Okay, so we have another exciting module, researching your competitors, a really interesting area, and it's not about copying them. No, that would be bad practice. We're not about copying. We're about researching and figuring out, well, what's different about us compared to somebody else. So why would you research in the first place? You know, you want to understand your competition because you want to get more traffic, shares, and attention. We all love the attention, you know, and that's with our blog. We want people to read it. We want people to share it. We want to get all that traffic from Google. And understanding our competition really helps with this. And with a plan, you're going to save an awful lot of time. So really understanding your content strategy and understanding your competitors is going to really help with this. And also then you want to discover, well, what is different about you? Because different means you stand out in the web. What's your niche or niche? If anybody is from the US listening in, I think it's called niche. I don't know who's right or wrong. But anyway, what the niche or niche is about is what is different again about you. It's like, is your content different? Are you focused on completely different content than somebody else? Or maybe you're focused on similar content but you deliver it in different ways. Or you deliver something that's much better quality. Something that makes you stand out is going to make a huge difference on the web. And that really helped with us as well. So if you're doing competitors research, you're probably going to, you know, start off by checking out the websites, and we're going to go through each of these points. But you'll do some analysis of the websites. You look at how you compare to them in authority. And when I'm talking about authority, I'm talking about, you know, how does Google look at you as at your website? You know, is it a low ranked one where they're not interested, or is it a super high profile one where it's, you know, high authority and you get lots of traffic? So we'll show you how to figure that out. You want to see, well, what content is popular on their site, maybe your site and their site competitors. You know, what gets shared an awful lot. You want to find out competitors, what are they ranking for? You know, what traffic do they get and what keywords are used? This is all freely available information. And you want to get an understanding of what their content strategy is, because you want something an awful lot better. So hopefully none of your competitors have these slides. So anyway, okay, so researching your website, their website. So this is going to be a manual process where you would make a list of your competitors, look at how often they're posting. You know, are they getting engagement, shares and comments? Do they allow guest posting? You know, do they allow other people to come in and write articles? And looking at different competitors, you might start saying, oh, well, here's a couple of people that are writing a lot of articles and their content's really good. Maybe they're people that may do guest posts for you. Or maybe the people you want to avoid because you want to stand out. But it's important to know. What do they offer for people to take the next step? This is really useful to see, to give you some ideas. So the blog is just a teaser where somebody comes in and sees a blog post. They may have seen it from Twitter or Facebook. It may be the first time they've ever come across your company. They're typically not ready to buy it now, so you have to nurture them. And that just means bringing them from somebody that's reading a blog post all the way through to a sale of a product or service. But the steps along the way. So you often see people will have, you know, sign up to our email newsletter. Here's a free guide as an encouragement to sign up. So have a look and see what they do. You might even look at who they link out to in posts. You know, within blog posts it's important to link out to people. So keep a track, are they linking out to similar sites all the time? It may be high quality sites that you need to follow. And have a look at their subscription. You know, subscribe to their content. Have a look at what their subscription process is like when you sign up, when you get the first email off them, when you get regular emails. Why not spy on them and see what this process is like? Because you want a process that's much better, much slicker, and this is a good way of learning. And you might then just document some of the results as you're going through this. So this is sort of a manual process of just having a feel for the type of competitors and having a good look around. So we mentioned about authority. So the highest authority, so there's different ways of looking at authority on the web. But there's a ranking system from a company called Moz, and they produce a domain authority and page authority. So what they do is they crawl through the web, millions and millions of pages, and start ranking websites. So they rank websites out of 100, and that's the domain authority. The higher the number, the better. And then they rank individual pages on your website from 0 to 100. Now, as you write a piece of content and people start linking to you from other websites, your page authority goes up. As your page authority goes up, then your overall domain authority goes up. So it's really important to understand, well, what is your domain authority and page authority of your pages? And what's that like compared to your competitors? Because then you can see how well you're doing. So for example, this is a high domain authority. So somebody had a domain authority of 77. You're immediately thinking this is an authoritative site that has been around for a long time. That a lot of people are linking to it and talking about it. So that's the overall domain authority. But then if you look at like the page authority of different pages on the website. So this is a fitness website, and they have a page authority of the home page 82. So typically you'll see the highest number on your home page because that's where everybody links to. So that's generally the most valuable page on your site. Now if you look at the workout page, they have 68 page authority, giveaway 66, build muscle 65. All of these contribute to the overall domain authority. So think about a site that only has a couple of pages. They don't have that much chance of really having a high domain authority. But think about the opposite, another site that has a couple of hundred blog posts that are very popular. All of a sudden now all that page authority will start linking into the overall domain authority. So another reason why blogging is extremely important. So it's important to understand the domain and the page authority. If your domain authority is high relative to your competitors in search results, and the page authority for your blog post is high, then it's going to be easier to appear on page 1 of search results. So we're going to show you later on another module where you will be able to research through Google and figure out, will I be able to rank for this content? Will I be able to beat the competitor? And an easy way of doing that is really having an idea of the domain authority and page authority for each of your pages. When you post a blog post, initially your page authority is going to be 0 because it's just a brand new post. But if you start linking to it from your own site, and then a couple other websites start referencing it and linking to it as well, that's going to bring up the page authority, and that means it's going to be easier to appear in Google for that page. Now if you're guest posting, which means you're just writing an article on somebody else's site, you want to figure out, well, what's the domain authority of that site? If that's really low, for example, it's lower than yours, well, why would I guest post on their site? Because I want to guest post on high authority sites to get lots of traffic. So it's important to understand that domain and the page authority. Now there's a couple of tools. Of course we love our tools, I'm the tools guy, so I always have some tools. Open Site Explorer is a tool which is provided by the company called Moz, which shows you what the domain authority and page authority is. So I go to OpenSiteExplorer.com and I put in a website address, and for this one I just picked a travel site. And I see the domain authority is 51 and the page authority is 59. So reasonably ranked, well-ranked website. Now actually on the very right hand side you see page link metrics. You can see 443 root domains. So these are unique websites that link to this site, and overall there's 10,000 links altogether. So lots of similar links from the same sites, but overall there's 443 different domains linking to this site. It just gives you an idea why the domain authority and page authority are reasonably high. So on Open Site Explorer you should put in your own site and then put in your competitors. Now with this, there's a paid version and a free version. So the free version, you can use this tool 3 times a day, so you can pick out 3 competitors and then the next day do another 3. unless you register with them. With their tool, you can register and you can get 30 days free if you want. Now what it'll also show below this, it'll show you what's the most popular links. This is really interesting as well. So what you want to find out is, you know, what websites are talking about them on the web that have a very high domain authority or page authority. So if I picked out one, for example, this is Inc.com. Inc.com have a domain authority 91, a page authority of 74. So I'm going to look at this post and I'm going to figure out, well, why are they linking to this travel site? And would they link to my travel site instead? I might look at the author on that blog post and I might start interacting with that author, maybe through social media. Or I might approach the editor. It's quite a large site, so it might be more difficult to get to the editor. But I'll certainly try and chat to the journalist and try and, you know, get access to them. I'll follow them on Twitter. I'll interact with them on Facebook. If they're writing lots of stuff on travel. And after a while then they'll start writing about our site. And then they link to us. And then of course we then have a great link from a high authority site. And as you get them links, your ranking keeps on going up within Google. So it becomes easier to rank. When I say rank, I mean appear within the top of Google search results. So yeah, so keep an eye on that. You'll see with the free version, you'll see a restricted view where you'll see the top few links, but they're the most important links. So they're the ones you're really interested in. So keep an eye on this tool and look at the top links for your competitors. You'll probably start to see as well that some similar sites will link to similar competitors. And that might be worthwhile to have a look at. I just looking down here, I see National Geographic, you know, domain authority 96, page authority 55. I'm going to be looking at National Geographic and say, who's writing about these tours? You know, could they write about our tours instead? So why is it important? As we discussed, if high authority sites are linking to your competitors, they should be linking to you. Why not? There are certainly targets you should be going after. If they're linking, then your content is probably going to be relevant also. So if it's like a scene here, that was a travel site and National Geographic were linking. So, you know, it's probably going to be relevant to your site as well. These are great sort of links to chase down. So again, it's understanding your competitors, what links they're getting, who's talking about them. Now, an alternative way of looking at this, instead of using Open Site Explorer, there's a little plugin that you can install, and it's very simple to install. It's called Moz Toolbar plugin, and this is completely free actually. And what you can do is switch it on and switch it off. So if I want to do research and I'm doing bike tours again, and I put in biking tours in Google, I switch on the toolbar and I can see the page authority of that page, the domain authority. I can see a link where I can look at the links that page is getting. Really, really useful. And now all of a sudden you're starting to think about domain authority, page authority, and is it low authority, is it high authority? Do I have a chance of appearing above them on these search results? It's a really simple way of getting familiar with more of the, you know, the SEO side of things, search engine optimization. So installing that Moz toolbar is very useful. So what I'm going to go through now, I'm going to do a demo of the Open Site Explorer. We love showing the actual tools in operation. And using the Moz toolbar, you know, how you would use that. And Moz toolbar is completely free. So you can start seeing in your search results. So what I'd say is follow the demo and then maybe you might pause this video and have a look yourself as you go along. Open Site Explorer is quite a handy tool to check, you know, some information on different sites. Now there is a restriction where you can only check like 3 sites a day because this is the unpaid version. If you signed up for the paid version of Moz Tools, you get like lots of great software, but it's like $99 a month. So this is the workaround here. So I can search here, and there's another tool I'll show you where you can get by some of this workaround. But say for example, I'm on opensiteexplorer.org, so that's what I've typed in. And I just put in this the site here. So for example, trektravel.com, and I do a search. So this is what I see for track travel. I see the domain authority and I see the page authority. So the domain authority, like I said, is the overall out of 100. And then for the page authority, this is for the home page. Typically that number is always higher because most people link back into your home page. There's a couple of different metrics here. For example, just the number of domains. The total domains that are linking to this site is 10,201. Root domains, many individual domains. As you hover over, you'll see some information that will explain it. And it shows you some social media metrics. Now, if I scroll down here, I see some various information where I can look at just discovered new links, top pages that they have. They're the most relevant pages. What domains are linking, what anchor text are used, things like that. But if I just scroll here and I'm looking at what are the top links that they have. So this one, G4TV.feed, this has use an anchor text of track travel, a page authority 74, and a domain authority of 82. So I might, I want to look at to see is there any interesting sites here that I should be tracking down, excuse the pun, to see whether they should be writing articles for me. So for this site, there's Inc.com. Jeff Hayden is writing stuff, unusual things to do related to travel. And so I scroll down, say for example I pick one, outside line adventure travel in North America, page authority 58, domain authority 79. I might open that up and now I'm looking to see, what's this about. So this is it's about travel. It's by Frederick Reimer. So this is a guy that I may want to track down, and there's a good link going to this site. As you scroll through the content, you'll see a link going back to that site. So Open Site Explorer is quite useful to have a look at this information and see who is linking to this site. Now there's a restriction on it. You'll generally see the first 7 or 8 links, and then after that you have to use the paid version. But at least you get to see what the top links are. Okay, what I also want to show you here was if you use the Moz toolbar. Okay. So if you go to moz.com/tools/SEO-toolbar, download for Chrome or Firefox, you add that to your browser. When you're browsing, you can switch this on and you can see the domain authority and page authority for all the pages you're browsing through. So when you would use this is if I picked out some keywords, I want to see if I can rank, I'll put the keywords into Google, and then I'll have a look at the domain and page authorities for all the different sites. So let me see. So if I go to here and I go to, for example, biking tours, and you can see this is just a normal listing. Now when I've installed this plugin, on the right hand side, what I'll do is I'll just enable it by clicking on Moz bar here. I'm enabling it. Now what you'll start to see is this information in your search results, which is really interesting. So I see here the page authority is 46, domain authority is 53. If I'm trying to rank on bike tours, this is interesting. Here's all the titles. And you can see for all the search results here. So this is great when we're doing investigation whether I can rank for certain keywords or not in Google. I don't always put this on. I only put it on when I'm doing this, the optimization. But you'll start to get familiar with why some sites are appearing higher than other sites in search results, as you start going through that. So they're 2 very useful tools. Okay, welcome back. So I know what's on the tip of your tongue is, okay, Ian, I've seen that authority stuff. I want to know how to increase it. Well, write great content regularly. You might go, yeah, Ian, write great content, but this is so important. If you're writing great content, people will link to you naturally, especially if you're social and you go out, start networking people and interacting, and when you're networking with people, find people that have a bigger audience than you, because you start sharing their content, they'll start sharing your content. The message gets out there about your great content, and then people will automatically write about, in articles they're writing about something similar to what you're writing about. They'll automatically start linking within the articles. So they'll reference you, somebody will click on that article, with words within the article, and go straight to your site. So that really helps. Then we get them links in, that's going to increase your authority all the time. And just keep on sharing the content of other bloggers. Identify the influential bloggers and start sharing their content. And we actually have a module later on which we'll talk about that. Now you can guest post on high authority sites as well. So this is where you approach somebody now it has to be within your business area. So if I'm in, travel tours, I'm looking for somewhere like in that area, like National Geographic, or maybe somebody not as high a profile that I can actually guest blog with. And when I write a guest post, I'm writing something that's really high quality article, and I'm hoping to get a link within the content. That's what I want, a link within the content back to my site. Don't think too much of the author links that you get at the very bottom of the post. You generally get a link back to your site. But what's more valuable is if the link is within the content. So think of a way of linking back to your site. Quite often, if I have an article that I really want to promote, what I do is I write a similar article as a guest post, and then I have a good excuse to link back to the other article. So I'm guest posting to bump up an article on the site. Make sense? I hope so. I hope so. So, well, what's your competitor ranking for as well? So that's another thing you want to see is in Google search results, well, what keywords are they ranking for? Because these could be keywords that we can target as well. Now, SEMrush, there's a paid and a free version. So you can get away with the free version for this research. But you need to open up an account. If you don't open an account, you'll get all sorts of pop-ups saying, please pay, please pay. So open up an account which just provides the email address and name. You don't have to hand over credit card details. You put in the website address and you can specify the country. So if you want to see for track travel, I'm saying what I'm looking for is, well, what keywords are they ranking for in US search results? Because search results can be slightly different depending on country. So I'm interested in US search results. So I open it up and I'll see, well, normally on the free version, this is the paid version, normally the free version, you see the top 10 keywords. And so what I'd see is here, for example, these are like travel tours. Trek Travel is their name of the business. Of course, they're ranking number 1. Bike tours, bicycle tours, for example, they're ranking number 5. The average monthly searches for this is 590. This is a cost per click, so ignore these ones really. Look at the traffic. That's generating 0.27% of the traffic in the US is generated from this bicycle tours. If I look at the top one, they're getting nearly over 50% of the traffic from the word trek. So this is where they're getting the traffic from. So important to put in your competitors into here and see, well, what are the top keywords they're getting traffic from? Because 1, it'll give you ideas for content, but 2, it'll help you go, oh my God, these guys are getting all this traffic from these keywords. Maybe we should be writing keywords or writing articles based around these keywords as well. So SEMrush is a really useful tool, so definitely worth checking it out. Okay, another part of research which is useful to do is figure out, well, what's their popular content? What's the popular content from your competitor side of things? You want to know, well, what's the most shared or the most linked content? And of course, we have a couple of tools which we'll show. One is called Social Crawlytics, which is completely free. And what this does is it crawls through your competitor's website and it analyzes all the blog posts and sees where they're getting all the shares and which is the most shared blog posts. So I come in here and I just throw my website address, Trek Travel for this example. Ignore the next 2 sections. I always just put in my website address. I click on the forward button and now it's produced me this nice report. And this nice report shows me for Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, this is where they're getting all the shares across these social networks. And I can see that the wider the bar, the more shares. So this is showing, like, this is a post, Shut Up Legs Bike Tour with Jens Voigt. This had 152 shares across Facebook, and that represents the shares. So every time I highlight an area, I can see the blog post that's causing the shares. So that gives me an overall view. I can also then go into detail and say, for every blog post, where are they getting the shares from? You know, this one, the Shut Up Bike Tour one, has 212 shares altogether, 152 on Facebook. Now, if I actually go through that Facebook column, you'll see that Facebook is where they get most shares, which sort of makes sense to me from a biking, you know, tour company. They're going to do more on Facebook. So it gives you an idea where they're popular and what sites. LinkedIn is not popular at all. It's really about Twitter and Facebook. But I can start picking out blog posts, potential blog posts, and go, okay, well, you know, Jens Voigt, I don't know if this is a well-known guy. Maybe this is somebody I could do an article with. Cross-country US bike tour, maybe there's some content there I can start writing about. So it just gives you some ideas for content you can write about. You get ideas for single posts you can write. You can start analyzing when you do look at multiple competitors. You can start seeing, is there a trend of any particular type of content that does well across multiple competitors? And that can be a good one to do. Identify what doesn't do well. Maybe there's certain content they have that doesn't share and is not resonating with their audience. And you might be able to look and go, well, all the sharing is happening on Facebook, so I should be on Facebook. You know, so all this sort of stuff is very useful to look at. If your competitors are writing content that's really popular for their audience, well, then it's likely that's going to be popular for your audience. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But it's not copying. You can do a different slant, or do a different variation of it, or do a more up-to-date post, or do a much higher quality post. I seen one of my, well, you might call him competitors, not really, as a friend, but Jeff Bullis does a lot of content quite similar to my content. And I done an analysis on social crawlytics, and I seen he'd done, you know, about 7 trends in the social media industry. And so that got a ton of shares, really popular. So I done 7 trends related to social media tools. So it's a different slant, it's a different area, but I know that the trend stuff does well for his audience. Well, then the trends are going to do well for my audience. That's the sort of stuff you're looking for. Okay, wrong one. Who is sharing your competitors' content? So you want to see as well, you know, like, who are the people that are regularly sharing your competitors' content? Because they should be sharing yours. So these are people you want to interact with on Facebook and Twitter, build the relationships. You want to start sharing their content. They're already sharing your competitors' content, so they should start sharing yours as well. BuzzSumo, I really like BuzzSumo. It's a free tool. I think they're going to bring in a paid version at some stage, but it's free at the moment. And I can put in just the website address across the top. And then I can see a list of all the blog posts on the website, and similar to social crawlytics, it shows you the shares. But what it also does is I can click on the view sharers. So now I can start to see, well, who's actually sharing the content. And funny it actually happens is Jeff Bullis is #1 at the top. Now, the way they rank them is, it's the people that are getting the most retweets appear up the top. So somebody's getting a lot of retweets on the content, then they appear near the top. So these are people I may want to follow, I may want to interact with, I may want to build relationships with. Because they're sharing out your competitors' content already. Again, valuable, useful information. So why track who is sharing? If people are sharing your content, well, if they're sharing your competitors' content, they will start sharing yours. And when you follow them and interact, they're more likely then to interact back, because they'll see the type of content you're dealing with. They're already sharing similar content, they're interacting with your competitor. They're probably going to follow you back as well. So you can start building your social following by interact with them. So let's take a look at a couple of the tool demos. So we'll do social crawlytics and BuzzSumo, just to have a look and analyze. And again, I'd say, you know, have a look at the demos and then try them out yourself. They're quite straightforward tools to use. Social crawlytics allows me to put in a website address, And from that, Social Crawlytics will crawl through that website and it'll show me all the social shares for content on the website. For example, with the blog post, you'll see, you know, if the competitor has 100 blog posts, well, you don't want to go through each one individually to find out which gets shared the most. Social Crawlytics will do this automatically for you. So it's quite straightforward. You just put in, you put in the website address. So we're going to stick with our adventure cycling. So it's adventure Now this means the next is traverse subdomains and crawl depth. It means for sites, massive sites, you may not want to, you know, do analysis on every single post for all directories and subdirectories. For this one, it's fine. I'm just going to leave as is. Typically, I leave as is. I go to the next step forward. I can set a schedule and I can get this to run every week, so I can keep on checking to see, you know, is there a new post with more shares. Then what I can do is I can specify an email if I want, you know, to send me the email when this crawl has been performed. Now what I did, I kicked off this crawl just before we started this. So you can see here, it's crawling through the website, 40% done, the total shares, the pages added. And over the right hand side, it'll say the shares per network. So you can see Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest. So this cycling website is very much, a lot of shares are done on Facebook. So if I'm into the cycling, it looks like this is going to be important to be active on Facebook. When I scroll through these, I can see that's / that means the root, so that's the home page. But then you see here /resources blog growler gauge, that's got 162 shares on Facebook. So every one of these represents different shares. The wider the bar, the more the shares. And you can see shares on Twitter and Pinterest as well. If I scroll down, then I can see a table, so I can start picking out this one. Growler gauge was shared a lot, so and shared and stumbled upon on Facebook. So I'm wondering now why these are shared so often. What makes them interesting? I'm trying to come up with some content ideas again for using this. Now I've used that tool. That's quite a good tool. It's free to use. You can see on the left there's available credits. So when you connect your Twitter account, you get some freebies you can use. Another tool I started using a lot recently is BuzzSumo. So I go to app.buzzsumo.com and I can put in the website address. So let me see, I'll put in adventurecycling.org. I'll do a search on that. So again, this actually does show as well now the different shares across the social networks. You can see again, Facebook is very popular in here. Now, and you could start using this instead of Social Crawlytics now. It's becoming quite powerful, so you can use it. There's different filters here, so I can filter about different things. So if I'm only interested in articles or things that only happened in the last 24 hours, I can do a filter. Now what I can also do, what I like about this is, within this website, I can see who shared the content. So I click View Shares. Oh, so no data for there. So they don't have data for there. Let me see. Based on if there's a lot of Twitter sharing, then they start showing it. So this is 32 shares on Twitter. So let's have a look on that one. Okay, so now you can see some people that shared the content. So if there's lots of shares on Twitter, it'll pick up the information. And you can see the different sites here that have shared the content. And now I can go in and start following these people. So you can see their domain authority, the page authority, the followers they have. You know, how often they retweet or what's the retweet ratio. So now I can come in here and start following some of these people. And that's a good way of building your social network, because if these guys are already sharing content for your competitor, they may share content for you as well. Now, if you want to take it one step further, when you're doing that competitor analysis, you could start producing a spreadsheet, and we've done this. Because as you're analyzing your competitors, you might start losing track of all this information. So we've actually provided a very simple spreadsheet where you can start putting in your competitor domain, your domain authority, you know, the keywords driving traffic, the top posts with the most shares, the top pages that are linking to your competitor. Now this is areas where you're going to start hunting down these, you know, start looking at the content related to this, start hunting down people that are linking to your competitors. So analyzing this way is going to really help, really to understand, you know, your competitor side of things. Okay, some actions. We love a bit of action around here. So identify your competitors, find out their authority. How does that compare against yours? Know that the authority, you know, use that Moz toolbar to start identifying the domain authority and page authority. And also you can use that to start identifying guest posting opportunities. So find out your competitors, what are their top links they're getting, and see if you can reach out to people so they can start talking about you, or it may open up some guest post opportunities because you want them high quality links coming back to you. We call that blogger outreach when you're reaching out to the bloggers. And we have a whole module about how you do that outreach later on. So find the most popular content, identify ideas and themes, type of post you could write. You know, when you start doing all this research, I guarantee you'll have a ton of content, you know, to write. It won't be a question of, you know, I can't think of ideas in, you know, you'll have tons of ideas. Find out who's sharing their content. These are the people you start building relationships with, and these are the people who are going to start sharing your content. This is a process. You build this process up, and as you start interacting with these people, sharing the content over time, they start sharing yours. Sharing yours, then more people get to see it, more people start linking to it. Your domain authority starts going up. You start ranking for more content. It's just a process you follow that requires a bit of groundwork, and that's all. Okay, so I hope you found that particularly interesting. I know it's an area I love because it's hugely beneficial doing that research. So if you stick around for the next module, what we're going to look at is how do you perform keyword research. So you've done your competitor research and you've probably come up with a lot of ideas for blog posts. Now you want to look at your keywords and go, well, can I rank for these keywords? What traffic is Google getting, you know, for these, or what traffic are websites getting for these keywords? And what tools you can use in keyword research. So let's have a look at all that. Come in the next module, so hopefully you'll stick around.